Hi, one Best PR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Anderson Silva fights Michael Bisping in Fight Night 84 coming up this Saturday. An interesting fight, and we're going to analyze it right now from a betting and odds perspective with Nick Kalikas from MMAOddsBreaker.com. Our regular viewers are familiar with Nick Kalikas. He is a professional MMA odds maker and a consultant for numerous high-profile sports books. Nick Kalikas, this is a very interesting fight, but I think before we start, I can tell you that I'm almost definitely not going to be betting it, right? Too many unknowns here as far as I'm concerned. Anderson Silva, minus 310 as a favorite right now at 5 dimes. Bisping, plus 255 on the other side. That's not surprising. Of course, Silva would be the favorite here, and I'm assuming that he's taking most of the public action so far. The question is, you just don't know exactly what you're going to get from Silva, right? He's almost 41. He's off a 1-year layoff, which probably helps him, but he's got to, now be off of the juice, which probably hurts him. And Bisping is clearly not a great fighter, and never been, but also clearly been a very good fighter and a solid fighter, and probably still is. I don't know. Would I want to take Silva here at minus 310? Definitely not. But would I want to bet against him with Bisping getting just plus 255? Probably not. But I'm guessing the public has bet Anderson Silva. Is that correct, Nick?
You're absolutely correct. I agree with you on everything that you just said as well. So I did open the line at minus 235 for Anderson Silva, and it's been bet up to minus 3-1, as you said.
I mean, you were expecting that. Why didn't you open the line maybe a little bit higher? You knew the public was going to come in on Silva, right?
Probably, yeah. It's one of those cases where I don't mind it getting bet up a little bit. It's not too bad where it is now, honestly. I've seen much worse. So, yeah, at the same time, I don't want to give too much plus money out there because, like you just said, an aging Silva at 41 years old, right. Honestly, he hasn't performed really that well, even in his win over Diaz. It has been a while now. I was going to say not long ago. He wasn't really that impressive either. So, can Bisping win this fight? I mean, it's 2016. Both of these guys are on a decline. If there's ever a time that Michael Bisping can pull off the upset, it is this time, this moment right now. Is it going to happen, though? I agree with you. It's a tough spot to bet because do you have that much confidence in Bisping's chin? Even though you have an aging fighter like Silva, he still has a little bit of power, and Bisping's always had a questionable chin. So yeah.
Do you expect then that you're going to get any sharp action? Do you think any big sharp action will come in on Bisping by the time the fight goes off?
I actually do. I do think that we might see a little bit of drop in line. I mean, it's kind of been the trend recently as well. The lines typically will get bet up a little bit, and then by fight day they drop back down. It just happened this past weekend with Cerrone as well, Cerrone and Oliveira. So I think we could see the same thing here. I mean, it shot up to about 300, then it came back down to closer to where I opened it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this line closing around 2.5 to 1, so a little bit lower than it is currently right now and closer to the opener. Because, I mean, there's just too many question marks out there, really. Both of these guys, obviously, Anderson Silva is one of the best all time, arguably the greatest of all time. But, I mean, he took a beating to the hands of Weidman. And, of course, that leg injury. Now, you just mentioned the steroid allegations and the bust and him being out for so long. You just don't know what you're really getting with him. Yeah. I mean, he just recently fought a guy in Nick Diaz, which is a 170-pounder that stepped up. And even though he won the decision, deserved to win that decision, I mean, it wasn't like a tremendous performance either. So there is definitely a sign of a decline. And at age 41, can it really be helped?
And then also, a big factor that we haven't touched on yet, I want to get your professional opinion on this. It's being fought in London, so that presumably gives Bisping a home octagon edge, or maybe not. I mean, I'm assuming it does. How big of a home edge does it give him? I'm not exactly sure. What's your take on that, Nick?
I think it can't hurt him, but at the same time, I mean, the way judges are these days, you just never know. I mean, we just saw this past weekend a girl that dominated a fight in the first round almost finished the girl a couple times, and she lost the fight on 2 out of 3 judges' cards. So my faith in judging continues to get worse. I mean, they're pitiful. They're awful out there. So really you would think that they would maybe have some favoritism. The crowd's going to be behind Bisping. Everybody loves Anderson Silva, though, including the judges. I mean, that's the one thing. If you're going to have favoritism against Anderson Silva, it's kind of tough because what he's done for the sport, what he's accomplished. So even if you're not trying to have a little bit of favoritism, they might actually favor him anyway because he's such a legend. But typically you would think that the hometown guy would have that edge. Right. And I think it doesn't hurt him. So if you lean any which way, it should probably help Bisping. But I mean, honestly, judges these days are a crapshoot. You just never know what you're going to get.
So basically you think that the best way to bet this fight would be like a prop at 5 dimes on bad judging and just bet the yes.
Yeah, and 5 dimes actually has put props on like that, no decision prop. I don't know if you've seen them recently, but that was one reason they've done it, because there's been so many bad decisions that I was actually talking to the boss one day, and I said, man, these decisions are just horrible. I can't believe what's going on. And he said, we should make some lines on no decisions. Yeah. And I said, yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. And players are actually eating it up. Now, of course, the limits are a little bit lower.
Right.
It's just a fun extra little prop there, but they are getting some action on those, and people do love them because you don't have to depend on the idiot judges that are out there.
All right, so then Bisping has, the edge in age, getting big odds, home octagon edge. Why is Bisping at plus 255 not then a good bet?
It is tempting, honestly. It's a little bit tempting. I think if you're going to bet this fight, it's definitely a dog or pass situation because Bisping, I think he can hang in there. I mean, again, I know that he's a little bit on a decline in his own right, and his chin has definitely been sketchy throughout his career. But overall, I mean, if he doesn't get knocked out and this fight hits the scorecards, I think he can hang with him and actually point fight against Anderson Silva. I mean, he could definitely hang in there. He's a busy fighter. He's a smart fighter. There's a lot of great things you could really say about Bisping. Is he on that championship level? I mean, he's just right under, that kind of line there, and he always kind of has been. But he's a quality fighter, no doubt about it. And one of the things I like about him is he does put in the work. He has a smart game plan most of the time, and he goes out there and performs. I mean, so he could sneak a decision away from here. Like I said, with all the circumstances here, I think sometimes Anderson Silva just gets a little bit tentative. I mean, we've seen him do that in the past. Even when he was in his prime, there's been fights that you're thinking, man, he should have knocked this guy out, and it's gone to the scorecards. So if tentative Silva shows up here, yeah, Bisping can definitely steal the decision. So I do think it's a dog or pass situation, but I'm on that fence where do I pull the trigger or not? I mean, it's kind of hard. It's in this situation with this fight, with both these guys declining, it definitely makes it for a tough bet.
Yeah, and then for anyone thinking about the total, right now we have 2.5. The over is minus 130. The under is plus 110. Again, I could easily see this one going either way, right? Easily see an early stoppage or easily see it, going over, even going the distance. I guess considering that both guys do have chins that, you could put in the category of suspect, maybe I'd take a shot with the under 2.5 at plus 110. Maybe I'd think about betting it if it was something like 150 or higher. Do you have any sense of, a good bet on the total, or is that a complete pass for you as well?
The total's been kind of staying steady. I opened at 2.5 over minus 135. It's about $1.30 or so right now, 2.5 over 130. So it's been staying steady, and I think it is a difficult spot.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I could see it, one guy getting blasted early and getting knocked out. Even though Bisping's not really known for his knockout power, he's got more power than people give him credit for, honestly. And again, against an aging 41-year-old chin of Anderson Silva, why not? I mean, and he does tend to clown a little bit. It got him caught against Weidman. Now Weidman has outstanding power. So
yeah, but also since this is like a defining fight for Bisping, right? I mean, he's finally getting his shot here. So what better way than to win it in a decisive fashion than to be tentative and have it go to the scorecards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I think they can be both a little tentative, maybe at the beginning, and it could hit over 2.5 rounds. But at the same time, like you said, Bisping's going to be motivated. I'll tell you what, if there's ever a time to, I think, not fear Anderson Silva, it really is these days, right? I mean, he's kind of lost that. I mean, before, it was almost like that Mike Tyson invincibility that he had, right, over his shoulders. Like, man, I mean, look what happened to Forrest Griffin when he fought.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't much of a punch at all that knocked Forrest out. It's just a mental thing. When you faced Anderson Silva in the cage back in the day, you thought, man, this guy just knocks everybody out. It seems like he doesn't even make hard contact or solid contact, and he gets you out of there with any limb. It could be his elbow, it could be his knee, it could be his kick, his hand, anything. So, I mean, there was just that fear that fighters had going in there, and they were kind of beat before they even started the fight.
Sure.
Now, Bisping, he's mentally strong. If one thing, I mean, he does have that confidence. He's got that kind of swagger that he doesn't fear a lot of people. And especially these days right now, again, that Anderson Silva they're getting, I think Bisping's probably going to be pretty confident thinking, oh, this old man's not going to knock me out now. I'm better than him and I can beat this guy. That's kind of, I think, his train of thought. And if that's the case, I mean, if he goes in there with that kind of confidence, he might be a little bit more aggressive, putting a little bit more power into his technique. And he could land. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does knock out Anderson Silva. I can't believe
now you're kind of like talking me onto a play at Bisping at plus 255. What's the argument against it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can't believe I'm actually saying what I'm saying right now. I mean, it is 2016. There's a lot of things that have come into the equation. But I guess, I mean, I'm talking myself into it a little bit as well. But
right.
At the price maybe. But it's still hard to pull the trigger, honestly, because of that chin. And one thing that Anderson Silva is a very accurate striker. I mean, he's precise, and he's still going to have that power behind him. So even if he slowed down a little bit, I know in his head, mentality, I mean, you've got two different things going on here. I think Anderson Silva, even though he had that win over Nick Diaz, he's going to kind of still question himself, I would think, right? Like he's going to think to himself, look, I haven't been performing at my best recently. Am I going to lose this fight? I think there's still a little bit more pressure on Anderson Silva than there is Michael Bisping, too. So, I mean, everything's kind of adding up to maybe we see an upset here. I mean, we really shouldn't, you would think, but if any time, now's the time for Bisping.
All right, well, Nick Kalikas, I'm not sure if I'm going to bet it, but if I had to give a pick right now on this fight and make a bet on it, it would be on under 2.5 rounds at plus 110. Nick Kalikas, if you had to make a bet on this fight right now with the total where it is and the odds, Silva minus 310, Bisping plus 255, what would it be?
I guess I kind of convinced myself a little bit more. It would go, if I had to make a play, I would probably take the plus 255 on Bisping, because there's more ways to win this fight. I mean, he can win the fight by knockout, which we just mentioned. And if it's a scorecards, I really do think it'll be probably a very competitive fight. If it goes the distance to 5 rounds, I mean, these guys are both going to be a little tentative. They're both going to be throwing back and forth. And Bisping is a great point fighter. I mean, he's a smart guy. He has good technique. He throws in combinations. So he's not easy to beat on the cards. So I do think that if he hits the cards, Bisping will have a legit shot to pull off the upset win. And if there's a finish, yeah, he's got an outside shot at finishing Silva as well these days. So I would probably bet 255 on Bisping.
All right, thanks so much for your awesome, insightful thoughts. As always, Nick Kalikas, and Nick's website, once again, MMAoddsbreaker.com. Thanks so much, Nick.